Omes of Rabbi Shimon.
Well, basically, we're taking apart this pasuk, right?
Correct. We're taking apart this pasuk to learn many laws that we did not know before, many prohibitions regarding different subjects, whether it's Maaseh Sheni, whether it's firstborn, Bechor, whether it's Ikurim. There's a lot of different subjects. This pasuk focuses on many different subjects, and it has a limitation, a restriction about something regarding that subject. The Torah is forbidding something, some sort of prohibition about, mostly about eating something. And the question is, what is the case that the Torah is talking about? So Rabbi Shimon expounds on the pasuk to teach us. He says, Bikurim, the first fruits, the Torah is forbidding you from eating the first fruits. The Kohen can't eat unless the Israel recited the psukim, the verses that accompany the bringing of the fruit. That's how he's going to understand the pasuk regarding Bikurim. What did you say? That regarding the first fruits, correct? There's a mitzvah in the Torah that when you bring the first fruits, you need to say psukim. One of them is the betesh. And if a person does not say the psukim, if the Kohen eats the first fruits before the person recited the psukim, Rabbi Shimon understands he will be subject to lashes, to Makkos, if he's warned and intentionally does that violation. And that he gets from this pasuk. That's what he gets from this pasuk, right? And we were up to yesterday. We were up to Niderech Azu Ola. Did we get up to there? 3 lines from the bottom. Okay. Okay, so we just said yesterday, the Torah says you can't eat in your gates your bakar, your cattle. The Torah says you can't eat in your gates your sheep. And what is the pasuk coming to teach us? So Reb Shimon says that pasuk is coming to teach us. He says the following. Good morning, Jaime.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. We are on Yud Zayin Amar Aleph, 17a. I presume in the article is 17a5. 17a5. We are discussing how Rabbi Shimon understands the pasuk when the Torah says you can't eat in your gates, you can't eat in your privacy of your home, which is the literal meaning of the pasuk. You can't eat the cattle and the sheep. Now, what kind of cattle and sheep are we referring to? You can eat cattle and sheep in the privacy of your home. What's the problem of eating cattle and sheep in the privacy of your home? So he says that it's referring to not an ordinary cattle and sheep. It's referring to a korban chatat or korban asham. It's a cattle or sheep that was designated for a sin offering or a guilt offering, depending on the type of sin a person does. It's depending on the different types of korbanot. And now he says, what is this pasuk coming to teach us? So we're going to go back to about 6 lines from the bottom. V'korcha v'soncha du chatat v'asham. Okay? V'korcha v'soncha is talking about a chatat, v'korcha chatat, and asham. In the art scroll, it's on 17a5, first column, bottom first column. Is what you're going to say? So we're going to see Chatat and Hashem are Kachek Kadashim. This is holy and holy, and we'll see how that's going to play a role. As Mr. Safdie is saying, there are 2 types of categories of holy offerings. There's holy, which is called Kodesh Kadashim, and there's called Kachek Kalim. There's the lighter holy things. What makes something lighter? What makes something more serious? When there's more restrictions, more limitations, that's more strict. And let's say holy can only be eaten by the male Kohanim, not by their wives. It can only be eaten in the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash. You don't have the whole city to eat it. Light holy things can even be eaten in the whole city. It's more light, there's more allowances. That's what something is called more light. Like the firstborn Bachar animal that you give to the Kohen's wife could also eat it. It's called Kachek Halim. It's lighter and therefore it's less restrictive. So the Gemara says the following. Omar Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon says, Ma bozer l'lamdeinu. What is this verse coming to teach us? When the Torah says you cannot eat the chatat, which the Gemara is translating and referring to a chatat and an ashab, you can't eat these offerings in your gate. How do we understand what the verse is coming to teach us? Im l'ochlan chutz l'choma. If you're coming to tell me that you're not allowed to eat this karban outside the wall of Jerusalem, you have to eat it within the walled city. So I don't need the pasuk to tell me that. Kavachoma me maaser. If maaser sheni, if I have, which is much lighter, it's not a karban, it's not an offering. If that is restricted and limited to be eaten in the old city, so something which is much more stricter, like a offering like a chatat or an asham, these offerings definitely would have to be eaten in the old city. So therefore, there's no need for the pasuk, for the verse to tell us this prohibition if we can learn it from a kal v'chomer. That is the Gemara's first point. So the Gemara strikes out and says it can't be referring to eating it outside the walls. That we don't need the pasuk to teach us that. Yes. Right.
If we say that the plans of our session that and we should then locate the same way to outside.
Yeah, so Yaron is asking what the Gemara on the next page is going to ask. He's asking, we have a rule that we've said, we don't learn a prohibition to learn a prohibition from a kal v'chomer, from logic, and as a result of that, we're going to give a guy lashes. That we don't do. So how could Reb Shimon say we would be able to learn it from a kal v'chomer, and we'd be able to learn from Maaseh Sheni, that just like Maaseh Sheni, you're not allowed to eat it outside Jerusalem, so too it's prohibited to eat the chatat and osham outside of Jerusalem. You can't learn that from a kal v'chomer. If you can't learn that from a kal v'chomer, so how can you say that we know from a kal v'chomer? That's what the Gemara later on is going to ask, and we'll see how the Gemara is going to address Yaron's beautiful question. The Gemara continues. Im lifnei zrika. If the Torah is coming to prohibit eating this sin offering or guilt offering prematurely, what's called prematurely? Before they sprinkle the blood on the altar, one at a time. If it's coming to tell us that there's a biblical prohibition to eat this, the meat of this offering before the sprinkling on the altar, the Gemara says we don't need this verse. Kal v'chomer metodah and shlamim. We can learn it from a kal v'chomer from todah and shlamim. Todah and shlamim are lighter offerings. They're not holy. So for lighter offerings, it's forbidden. There's a prohibition to eat before the sprinkling. So certainly heavier offering is forbidden, right, Mr. Haber? Be forbidden to eat before the sprinkling. We're on the time we're on Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, 17a. Article is A5. A5 on the bottom, getting to the top right column, getting there. So the Gemara says, Imla achazrika, maybe the pasuk is telling us that let's say you processed the korban, right? You did everything right. You brought it to the Beit HaMikdash, you slaughtered it, you sprinkled the blood, but you're not a Kohen. A non-Kohen is not allowed to eat. He knows he's not a Kohen. He knows he's not a Kohen, and maybe this pasuk is teaching you that a non-Kohen is forbidden to eat this offering. Maybe this pasuk is teaching you the prohibition that will lead to lashes as a result of this pasuk, because you, the non-Kohen, cannot eat this korban. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, we don't need this pasuk. Why? Kal v'chomer b'bechor. We have a kal v'chomer from firstborn. If a firstborn animal, which goes to the Kohanim, there is a prohibition to eat the firstborn animal by a non-Kohen, so too, this animal, which also goes to the Kohanim, also there'll be a prohibition there'll be lashes if it's eaten by a non-Kohen. Because Bechor, the firstborn, is lighter. It's not as strict. The animal that's the firstborn animal is called light kachim. And if light kachim, there is subject to a prohibition of eating it by a non-Kohen, so certainly heavier kachim, if heavier kachim, if it would also be a prohibition, there'll be a lo saseh. The same way there's a lo saseh, the same way there's the Torah teaches us, let's say by holy holies, the Torah says the Kohanim need to eat it. Okay? But let's say it wasn't written in a lo saseh, in a negative language. You should didn't say a non-Kohen is not allowed to eat it. We know what's the given. The given is that a Kohen has to eat the holy stuff. The given is that a Bechor, a firstborn, the given is also that it has to be eaten by a Kohen. Those are the two givens. Now, the fact that something has to be eaten by a Kohen doesn't necessarily mean that there is Torah tells us a lo saseh. Doesn't necessarily mean Torah tells us not in a language that a non-Kohen is not allowed to eat it. You could tell me males have to eat it. We could learn out a male has to eat it, but we're not going to learn out a malkut from a language of an asay. The Torah tells us a male has to do this. Okay, we can figure out that not a male Kohen eats it. Okay, a male Kohen has to eat it. But how do you? But the Torah never wrote that a non-Kohen is not allowed to eat it, right? As we know, we have, in order to give malkut lashes to somebody, Torah has to be given in the language of a lo saseh. The Torah tells us don't do this. If the Torah tells you to do something, there's no lashes by not following what you need to do. A guy did not put on tefillin, there's no lashes. So we need a source that there's lashes, there's malkut, for somebody who is a non-Kohen who eats from the chatat, eats from the asham. So how we want to learn it out, so the Gemara wants to say, we will learn out from Bechor, from the firstborn, because there is a lo saseh. There is the Torah tells us that a non-Kohen cannot eat from the firstborn. So therefore, we would say a kal v'chomer for a non-Kohen cannot eat from the chatat. Let's see what the commentary says. Okay. So therefore, the Gemara says, so what is this pasuk? What is this verse coming to teach us? We already know all these possibilities. We already know from a kal v'chomer. So the Gemara says, "Halo ba katuv ela laochel mechatat v'asham afilu la'achazrik." Good morning. If someone goes ahead and he eats from the chatat and the asham, afilu la'achazrika, even after the sprinkling of the blood. But what's the problem? He ate it in the wrong place. Everything was done right, but he ate it outside the curtains, the hangings of the courtyard in the Mishkan, or when the Beit HaMikdash is around. He ate it outside the courtyard. So, meaning this pasuk is teaching us, this pasuk is giving us the lo saseh. The Torah is teaching us you're not allowed to eat the chatat, the korban chatat, the sin offering, or the asham, or the guilt offering. This is the prohibition to teach you that you're not allowed to eat it outside the courtyard. It's limited to be eaten in the courtyard, in the azara. And if a person goes ahead and intentionally eats it outside the courtyard, and he was warned, he's subject to lashes. That's what the Gemara is. Say it again. That's only the only one who could eat the chatat and the asham is a kohen. But if the kohen eats it outside, he's going to get lashes. Correct. Say it again. If the kohen eats kodesh, this is chatat and asham is kodesh kadashim. It's holy. In the courtyard, has to be eaten in the courtyard. Pesach can be eaten in the whole Jerusalem because Pesach is Kodesh Kalim. Good morning, Morris. Pesach, meaning we don't get the whole Jewish community into the courtyard to eat. Maybe we all do the slaughtering. You're correct, Mr. Safdie. But the slaughtering is done in the courtyard. But eating, every family eats. Every family gets together on Pesach and they eat as a family together. And the whole Jerusalem is full with the Jewish community. You could have 1 million Jews in the old city, everyone eating Kodesh Kala anywhere in Yerushalayim. Correct. That's the Kodesh Kala. Okay. So the Gemara says, now Nidarecha. It says Nidarecha. Good morning, Dr. David.
Good morning.
When we're focusing on Nidarecha, the Torah says here also, we cannot eat your Nidarim, your vows, outside in your private gate. So what does that mean? The Gemara now explains. What does this mean? You can't eat your Nidarim. First of all, what is the Neder? A vow. What vow are we talking about? So the Gemara says, Zu Olah. If a person goes ahead and he says, I want to bring a Karban Olah. I want to bring an Olah, an offering to Hashem. And sometimes an Olah is brought, sometimes if a person missed out on a mitzvah aseh, he missed out on a certain mitzvah that he was supposed to do, he will bring, sometimes he will bring a Karban Olah, he'll make a donation of an Olah because he missed out on a mitzvah that he was supposed to do. He missed out on tefillin, chas v'shalom. He'll bring a Karban Olah. I think I saw sometimes even a lav hanitek laseh. We learned that a lav hanitek laseh, when Torah says don't do something, the Torah follows up with a commandment following don't do it, a fix. Since the Torah gives us a fix, so there's no, just do the fix and there's no lashes. But the olah also would be a certain type of atonement if you would want to bring it. So the Torah is telling us about the Karban Olah. This offering, the Olah, Reach Olah, is completely consumed on the Mizbeach. See, there's different Karbanot. In the holy Karbanot, it would seem that the Olah is the holiest of holy. Because the Olah, there's no part that goes to even the Kohen. Right? Generally, in the holy stuff, a chatat, a sin offering, an asham, a guilt offering. The Kohen gets a piece of it. And the Kohen eats from the Karban, and that serves as a kapara, that serves as an atonement for the person. But the olah, it's not eaten by the kohen, it's eaten by the altar itself, the mizbeach itself, totally consumed on the mizbeach. In a certain sense, when a kohen eats a korban, the kohen is really like getting it from Hashem. Like when you bring the korban to Hashem, so Hashem is like giving it to the Kohen and when the Kohen eats it, there's an atonement that happens to the person, the Baalim. The Baalim have a kapara. The people who go ahead and did the sin, even the unintentional sin, will have an atonement by the fact that he gave something, he brought something to the Beis HaMikdash, and in a certain sense, it's like you gave it to Hashem, you gave a gift to Hashem, by giving him the korban, and Hashem gives the korban to the Kohen eats it, and there's a kapara, there's an atonement for the person. But when you go ahead and directly the whole thing is consumed on the altar, that's holy, that's called holy, that's even the highest level of holiness. That's what it would seem to be. We're going to see that in the Gemara more about that. So this is the olah. The olah, the Torah is telling us, you're not allowed to eat the olah in your private gates. Now, we know the olah anyways is not eaten at all. So what does the pasuk come to teach? Let's see what the Gemara. But what about? Do we need a prohibition? The fact that something is completely consumed on the altar doesn't mean that there's lashes if you ate it necessarily, because you need the Torah to tell us, don't eat it, don't eat it, lo sase. You need the Torah to tell us, don't do something over here. So let's see what the Gemara. Right, so we're going to see about that. Now it's interesting to note that a chatat, when a person sinned unintentionally, he forgot it was Shabbat, or he did not know this act was a forbidden act on Shabbat. Those are the two cases of chatat, right? What's the two cases that a person will bring a sin offering? He forgot today was Shabbat, and he that's called a sin. How do you forget today was Shabbat? Did you ever forget your name? How serious are you taking Shabbat if you forget today was Shabbat? Or if you did not know the law of Shabbat, you did not know you can't heat up a kettle of water on Shabbat. Why didn't you know? Why didn't you educate yourself? So there is, or that's also considered a sin. And it's considered holy, meaning that offering when a person wants to fix up his sin for doing such an inadvertent sin, that's holy. To realize that's a very high holiness that you could bring to the animal, to the korban, because that's such a big thing. You're getting the kapara, you're getting your atonement for that sin that you have done. Not being educated is not an excuse, and forgetting it's Shabbat is not an excuse. So the Gemara says, now we're talking about the Derecha Zu'ola. We have 3 lines on the bottom of the page on Yud Zayin and Aleph, and in the art scroll, it's the right column, paragraph 17a5. Omar Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, "Ma bo zeh lelamdeinu." What is this pasuk coming to teach us? Im lo uchlan chutz l'choma. If the tunnel, you have the place, good. Im lo uchlan chutz l'choma. If the pasuk is teaching us that you cannot eat the korban olah, the Torah is giving a prohibition, a lo sase. You cannot eat the olah outside Jerusalem. Really, the olah is not eaten anywhere. But there is the Torah creating a lo sase. The Torah is telling us a negative commandment. Don't do this. Don't eat it outside the city. We don't need the pasuk to tell me don't eat it outside the city, because we know that from where? If Ma'aseh Sheni you can't eat outside the city, there's a prohibition, there's a lo saseh, there's lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside Jerusalem. Certainly there's going to be lashes for eating the olah outside Jerusalem, which is much holier than the Ma'aseh Sheni. Im lefnei zrika, if it's telling you that you cannot eat the olah before the sprinkling on the altar, kavachom mitodo shlamim, that we know. The Todah Shlamim, the Thanksgiving offering that a person gives, they came out of jail or they were sick and they were healed. There, the Torah teaches us that there's a prohibition. There's lashes for eating it before the zrika, before the sprinkling of the blood. So certainly there'll be a prohibition to eat the korban olah before the sprinkling of the blood. Imla achas zrika. If the prohibition is telling us that he ate it after the zrika, so the Gemara says, now what does it mean if he ate it after the zrika? So the Gemara says, if it's teaching us that you ate this korban after the sprinkling of the blood, which you're not allowed to, if you, let's say you're not a kohen, and you're a non-kohen and you ate it. If you ate it after the sprinkling of the blood, so kavachomer mibachar. We know from a bachar that he can't eat this. That a non-kohen cannot eat the korban. There's a prohibition for non-kohen to eat from the bachar. So certainly there's a prohibition for non-kohen to eat from the olah. Im chutz leklayim, if it's coming to teach us that you ate it outside, outside the courtyard, We don't need it. Kavachomer mechatat v'asham. We know from chatat v'asham that you can't eat it outside the courtyard. So haloba kotuv. So what does the pasuk teach us? Now we're turning the page. Mabruk. What is it coming to tell us? What is this pasuk coming to teach us? When it tells us you cannot eat from the korban olah b'sharecha, ela la'ochel min ha'olah la'achas zrika. If a person eats from the korban olah after the sprinkling of the blood, afilu bifnim shehu lokeh. Even if he ate it on the inside, meaning he ate it in the what? In the courtyard, within the hangings. So he ate it in the right place. But he's not allowed to eat it. Because the korban olah is not meaning to say it's not that he ate it in a place. It's not that he ate it outside the courtyard, right? It's not that he ate it outside the courtyard, or that he ate it outside Jerusalem. He ate it inside the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash. But since this animal is an olah, the olah is not allowed to be eaten at all. Excuse me, so it's not allowed to be eaten at all. So therefore, the pasuk is teaching us that if a guy eats the olah, this korban that's supposed to be totally consumed on the altar, if a person eats this olah, even inside the courtyard, he is subject to lashes. That's what the Gemara. Even if, and Rashi points out what Mr. Bitesh says, even if he's a Kohen, here is one thing that the Kohen is off limits. Even the Kohen is not allowed to eat. What can't the Kohen eat? The olah. The olah korban, even though it's brought to the Beit HaMikdash, it's totally consumed on the altar, and the Kohen is not allowed to have any part of it. So now, if the Kohen wants to go ahead and eat some of it, we say that if the Kohen wants to eat some of it, the Kohen will get lashes. Rabbi Shimon says, and where does Rabbi Shimon know that there'll be lashes? He learns enough from this pasuk. The Torah says, "Lo suchal lechol b'sharecha." You can't eat in your gates. You can't eat the recha, the korban olah. This is telling you that if you eat the korban olah, which you were not allowed to eat, he's subject to what? To lashes. Because we want to say that even though everything was done right, meaning to say the korban was processed right, because we had before the sprinkling of the blood, it's not processed right. But here we're saying everything else was done right. It was brought to the courtyard. It was sprinkled the blood on the altar. But still, it's not allowed to eat it. It has to be consumed on the altar. Yeah. What? This is nederecha, correct. What makes it olah is that if a person says, I want to bring a korban olah, and he designates this animal, he says, this animal is an olah. If you designate the animal and you say this animal is consecrated for this korban, then you have created the power of the mouth. The power of the mouth is that you could go ahead and say certain words, and those words create serious responsibilities. And maybe that's a big lesson in life. A lot of people don't take their words seriously. But if you go ahead and you say, just like if a person would say, accepts upon himself to be a Nazir, he becomes a Nazir by accepting upon himself. It's a very serious thing. And then kicks in certain limitations, certain restrictions. So too, if you say about an animal, this animal should harizu olah, this is an olah, so therefore now it has the laws of an olah. And why does he want to do it? Let's say he felt he missed out a mitzvah one day. He was supposed to put on tefillah one day, and he slept through the whole day. I don't know what happened to him, and he feels very bad about it. Or maybe because he had thoughts that weren't appropriate, he wants to bring a atonement. Yes, Jake, you want to say something?
This possibly be clarity if you want to derive
Correct.
Where, how do you divide it?
Because we have a rule, if the Torah tells us something, and if it seems that it's not, and if it's not necessary for what it's literally telling us, it has to have some sort of explanation what it's coming to tell us. So even if it's written in such a fashion of lo sucha lechol bisharecha midarecha, but it has to have a chidush. The Torah is teaching us something that we don't know before. So what is the thing that the Torah is teaching us? So Rav Shimon went through the process of elimination, and he says it can't be teaching us literally that you can't eat the olah outside Jerusalem, because that we know already. Can't be that you can't eat the olah outside the courtyard, because that we know already. So what is it coming for? So it has to be coming for some purpose. And therefore he says it's coming for this particular purpose. Right. There was no Kohanim then. Right. They brought a korban. Right. They brought a korban to Hashem. So the Gemara says, Omar Rava. Rava, after hearing the creativity of and the breadth of Rabbi Shimon's exposition, he's very impressed with Rabbi Shimon. He's like moved. And he says, you know what? When a lady is giving birth, or Rashi says when someone's mother is giving birth, she should pray that her child should be like Rabbi Shimon. She should have a child who's so creative in his Torah understanding. This Rav Shimon, it doesn't say it's Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Probably it's not Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. I think it was probably the Mishnah. I'm not sure. It doesn't say it. No one said it. What? They both, yes, they both came to the same conclusion, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon. But Mr. Safdie, here we see how Rabbi Shimon came to his conclusion, and we see the way he dissected and expounded on a pasuk in such a novel fashion. So therefore, Rava says, when a person's giving birth, they should pray. See, also we see the power of prayer, how it will have an effect on the child. That you should pray that the child should be a great child, like a certain rabbi, someone such a Talmud Chacham. They should have a child that's a Torah scholar. And the text that we have in front of us is V'ilo lo tele. And if it's not like Rabbi Shimon, better she shouldn't give birth to the child. Many remove this second, say that this text is not, the Ritva, I think, removes this point, because even if a person doesn't have a child, and one of Mr. Feldman, even if a person doesn't have a child as great as Rabbi Shimon, it's still great to have the child. So therefore, they don't want to say that they amended it. They say only the first part. He said, Rava said, when a lady is giving birth, she should pray that his mother should give birth to a child who is as great a Torah scholar like Reb Shimon. It's interesting, we have a bracha that parents give a child of Yisimcha Elokim Ke'Ephraim Menashe. We give a bracha to a child that they should be like Ephraim and Menashe. And here he's giving us another different type of prayer that they should be like Reb Shimon. It's just interesting to note, Ephraim and Menashe. Ephraim was the one who studied Torah by Yaakov. Ephraim was the one who spent his time by Yaakov. Menashe was more the political person who worked with Yosef, and And the prayer that some explained when we give a blessing to the child, that he should be great both in Torah, which is like Ephraim, but also should be able to accomplish a lot like Menashe, who also accomplished helping Yosef in running the government. That's how you could possibly explain that the blessing, it's called like Torah Ugdula, Torah and this great position in the same time. That's an idea. But remember, we say Ephraim first. First, you got to make sure that the child, the first focus is that he should be Ephraim. He should want to be a big Torah scholar. You be a big Torah scholar. So then you want to also be successful in other areas, in finance and so on and so forth, in worldly pursuits. But as long as you have the Ephraim first, you know what your priorities are first, then we could give you the blessing that you should be successful like Menashe. But you have to have the balance. You have to have the Torah under your belt to be able to make it in that arena, in the world, so to speak, outside the Beit Midrash. You need the study of Torah. People go to yeshiva. The study of Torah is supposed to build them, to give them that ability to be successful as a Jew in the world. So that's maybe the Torah Gdula. Okay, so Rava says, when a lady gives birth, we should pray. When a lady prays to Hashem for a child, and also we see the power of prayer of the mother, she should pray that he should be a Torah scholar like Rav Shimon. And then the Gemara says, even though everything Rav Shimon said, Rav Shimon came up with certain conclusions based on his analysis of the verse. Rava says, I have a question on every conclusion that Rabbi Shimon came to. Every conclusion that he came to, I have a question. Meaning he said there's Kal v'chomers. He had certain logic that he understood. You can learn certain things from. And I'm gonna I have questions on every Kal v'chomer that the rabbi said. Every Kal v'chomer that Rabbi Shimon says, I'm able to ask a question on. And even though I have a question on every Kal v'chomer that he said, and every statement that he said here, I am still telling you that you should still pray, a woman should still pray that the child should be like Rabbi Shimon. And the Gemara later on is going to ask, if you have a question on everything the rabbi said, so why should a lady pray? Yeah, that Mr. Feldman, why should she pray to be like that rabbi if you have a question on everything the rabbi said? So the Gemara is going to address that tomorrow. Hopefully. Yeah, the Gemara. There's a statement that says that a korban olah has to be completely consumed. Because that's an assay. That's given as a language of an assay, as a positive commandment. That will not give lashes to somebody. To give lashes, the Torah has to say, it says completely burn it, consume it. Right, consume, but it doesn't mean that there's a losa. It doesn't say turn to say in the dome. Okay, so we'll say Kaddish and we'll Chanana ben Akasha Omer Rasa Kalish Bros Agasel Fit Him Razor Veshem Adonai Kabeit the Mat to go Yadil Torah V'Yadir. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great day, everybody. Mr.
Right.
Feldman, you made the 10th. You were the 10th man.